Apex monsters are both the best and worst part of Monster Hunter Rise, and if the team at Capcom doesn't learn some valuable lessons from them, Sunbreak could be a failure. Here's why. Let's start from the beginning. If you don't already know, an Apex monster is simply a stronger version of a normal monster that leads a rampage. Back when Rise initially released on the Switch in March, you were only able to fight Apex monsters at the end of rampage quests. However, following a few updates, not only were new Apexes added, but we were also given the ability to fight Apexes in their solo quests. I'll be honest, up until this moment I didn't care about Apexes at all. You barely needed any materials to make rampage weapons, and I wasn't a huge fan of rampages, so I wouldn't fight them very often. After the addition of these quests that focused exclusively on Apexes themselves, we were finally able to appreciate these monsters and their movesets. I'm a firm believer that these are some of the best hunts in the game. Granted, they're not all great, but most of these fights are fantastic, and they demonstrate exactly what makes a Monster Hunter fight fun. There are a couple of aspects to Apexes that make them special. First, they introduce enhanced movesets. They take existing movesets of monsters and enhance them, but not in a way that you might think. They don't simply give them new moves, they give them altered versions of existing moves. This is so important because it means you don't have to relearn an entire monster. When they do a new move, you likely already know how to dodge it, you just don't recognize the move yet. Let me give you an example. Look at the Rathalos. This is one of its strongest attacks. He shoots out a blast of fire on the ground and then sweeps it straight at you. Next, we have Apex Rathalos, who has the same attack, but when he would normally stop, he does it again, just mirrored. See what I mean? The margin for error is just a little bit smaller. It's thanks to these extra moves that Apex monsters are more interesting than their default counterparts. Next, they have special attacks signified by these roars.
Joke's over! You're dead!
Wait, wrong clip. After letting out that blood-curdling noise, they unleash their ultimate. Each Apex has these super moves that deal tremendous damage and honestly just look really cool. Apex Zinogre charges at you cloaked in golden lightning, then he follows up with a projectile that splits in 3 different directions, and finally he finishes with a massive slam on the ground. Of course, immediately after the monster is done mashing like there's no tomorrow, they leave themselves wide open for your own big attacks. Apex mhswoocer spins around creating dozens of bombs in the air while also shooting this beam of water all over the battlefield, before finally finishing with a concentrated beam pointed directly at you. These signature moves not only keep you on your toes, but they totally alter the pace of the hunt. For a short moment, you're not the hunter anymore. You're the one being hunted, and all you can do is run. Now with this, you might be thinking, wow, Apex monsters sure are cool, Swoocer, and so is this video. I'm gonna subscribe. And to that, I'd say thank you. But you're also probably wondering why I said Apex monsters are both the best and worst part of Monster Hunter Rise. Well, that comes down to the fundamental reason behind hunting in the entire series: drip. You see, there are 3 critical steps in the journey of any Monster Hunter game. Step 1, you acquire your starting gear to escape low rank. Step 2, defeat the final boss of high rank. And finally, step 3, find the coolest looking weapons and armor you possibly can and hunt whatever stands between you and that set. So what's the problem with Apexes? They have no incentive to hunt them. There are no special Apex weapons or armor sets, and as I mentioned earlier, while we do have rampage weapons, they barely require any parts at all. In just 1 or 2 hunts of any Apex, I'll have more than enough to craft whatever rampage weapon I want. What makes this even worse is that the rampage weapons look like this. Granted, you can customize them to look like any weapon in the game, which is great, but there's no real specialized design for Apexes, which is just disappointing. Especially since these fights are so good. It really is a shame that you have little to no reason outside of simple curiosity to experience some of the best hunts in the game. So what does all of this have to do with Sunbreak? Well, like I said at the start, if Capcom takes certain aspects of Apexes and implements them into Sunbreak, they'll see tremendous success. First, they need to give Sunbreak monsters attacks with a low margin for error to really get you to focus on the hunt and appreciate the monster. Next, they need special attacks just like Apexes have to really demonstrate the difference between a high rank monster and a master rank monster. I mean, these are supposed to be the strongest monsters in the world, and signature attacks would be a great way to show that. Lastly, and most obviously, we need drip. This last one is a given, since in every Monster Hunter game, we get new weapons and armor designs for the same monsters in G rank. But what monsters will actually get into Sunbreak? Well, here's a video on that.